a growing digital divide in our country.
If your city doesn't have healthy broadband, your city is not going to survive economically.
When you don't have sufficient access to broadband, you're not going to be able to participate in everyday decisions that our democracy makes.
Cities and towns need to be able to decide their broadband future. It should be decided for them by incumbent broadband providers.
We can't solve our biggest problems in America without broadband.
My parents really shaped my perspectives when it comes to broadband access and affordability. I come from a family of immigrants. My dad immigrated from Ethiopia during the 70s when he was facing political persecution. And he came to this country with really nothing but his own hard work and ingenuity. And he raised a family. And that really showed me that there's a lot of inequities in this country, and broadband access is just one of them.
Access to broadband service is critical in the 21st century. It is access to opportunity, to education, to healthcare, to financial services.
We talked to one state legislator who worked on bringing broadband to his community. He said, broadband may not save this community, but not having broadband will kill it. Climate change, agriculture, the economy, the list goes on and on. Each of these different problems requires solutions that ride on broadband networks. That's why broadband is fundamental. Learning what has been done, what can be done, that's the most empowering source of knowledge for broadband going forward.
States matter when it comes to broadband. States matter when it comes to getting folks online. They can serve as leaders and models for national leaders and for local leaders as well.
Next Century Cities is a great organization that is really at the front lines of trying to bring better connectivity to cities around the country, and we're excited to count them as a partner and ally.
This organization provides such crucial tools and resources for communities who just don't know where to start.
When I think of Next Century Cities, I think of the broad network of local elected officials that you represent, that they're an important voice as leaders in their community, leaders who understand that federal policy has an impact on the local level.
The reason NCC plays such an important role in this debate on broadband access is that regardless of where the communities are at, NCC is standing up. Whether it be an indigenous community, whether it be rural communities, Midwestern states, that's where NCC is doing their best work and standing up for those communities and making sure that everyone has access, regardless of where they are.
When I think of Next Century Cities, I think of cities connecting citizens, all the people in their communities, so that the communities will be stronger.
Good afternoon. I'm Aldona Valicenti. I'm the Commissioner and the Chief Information Officer for Lexington-Fayette Urban County Government. We're a combined city government organization. It's a real pleasure for me to be here and to provide some introductory remarks. You know, long before COVID, a growing number of cities placed a high priority on broadband. They're focused on the needs of the people who live and work in their cities, and the leaders understood the power of broadband. They recognized that that tool could connect them and improve them to healthcare, emergency services. It supported new educational models, workforce development, and training opportunities. In order to attract innovation and to boost population growth, high-speed, affordable, and reliable broadband is a must-have. And let me repeat that because I think you heard that in the video earlier. High-speed, affordable, and reliable broadband is a must-have. So Next Century Cities was intended to serve as a dedicated point of collaboration. And by the way, I'm going to comment on that from my own personal experience in a few minutes. At full bloom, it would provide a forum for local leaders to share knowledge, learn about possibilities and best practices, find ways to improve and collaborate, and to replicate things across municipalities and cities. It would also provide a pathway for local officials to elevate the community level of perspectives into a national conversation about choosing and about closing the digital divide. And by the way, that is extremely important. You saw that on the video a couple of times. So let me talk to you from my point of view. I have joined personally and as a
recording in progress.
We've joined Next Century Cities in 2015, and we did it with a lot of forethought. We needed all of those things. Our mayor put out the challenge that he wanted Lexington City to become a gig city. We had providers, but the providers had not invested in a long time. So it was a way to educate ourselves. It was the quickest way to educate ourselves. Secondly, we were able to talk within a network and to collaborate with other cities that have looked for solutions and found solutions. And third, but probably most importantly these days, it provided us an opportunity to give voice at that national level. I can't tell you how important that is in today's environment. We all know that we're going to get federal funding. We all know that that's going to help us to close that digital divide. But to do that within an organizational structure that has recognized that for many, many years was invaluable. And by the way, Lexington City is now one of the largest gig cities we were able to build out. And we were able to do that with the help of Next Century Cities. Now, I'd like to introduce Ryan Johnston. He's the Policy Counsel for Federal Programs, who has been a valuable addition to the Next Century Cities team. But before coming to Next Century Cities in 2020, Ryan completed a legal fellowship. I'm going to read this so I get it right, with the Computer and Communications Industry Association. He also worked as a tech policy issues as an intern at the Federal Communications Commission and the White House Office of Science and Technology Policies. And by the way, I have benefited from this. Our city has benefited from his involvement. His leadership on low-income programs, spectrum, and network resilience have helped to expand Next Century Cities' policies footprint at a time when community-level perspectives are desperately needed to inform policy. Ryan works to create opportunities for local officials to document insights and proceedings where federal broadband policy is made. His personal experience with the digital divide that continues to affect people in his hometown is coupled with the opportunity to impact policies that will be there for years to come are a constant motivation. And trust me, we as a city have benefited from that. So we are grateful for his contributions. Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Aldona, for that absolutely lovely introduction. As she mentioned, my name is Ryan Johnston, the Policy Counsel for Federal Programs here at NCC. And over the last year, we've seen so many great strides in federal broadband level, federal level broadband policymaking. The establishment of the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program and the Emergency Connectivity Fund are helping to bring connectivity to more households through affordability programs and allowing schools and libraries to do more to help the communities that they are so central to. As we continue through these programs, we're working to document community level concerns and trying to take those to the FCC and take those to the people that need to hear them to make sure that as we're working towards creating a more permanent program or new policies, it's easier for consumers to get enrolled. It's easier for communities to understand what they need to do to get signed up. And it's easier for us to get people connected. Additionally, and this is really critical, broadband has become such a serious priority for both the White House and Congress. We've continued to see time and time again that senators, representatives, and White House staff are working so very hard to really reach into the communities that they represent to find those stories and those challenges that they can then implement into new policies to make sure that we're actually meaningfully closing the digital divide. And really at the very base of this, we're trying to make certain that communities are consulted as new broadband funding opportunities are crafted, debated, and implemented. We're working very hard to ensure that new broadband connectivity solutions meet community needs regardless of geography or demographics. Really, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, or what you have. We need to make sure that you're connected. And with all of that said, it is my pleasure to introduce the creative genius that has masterminded much of today's events. So Brittany-Rae Gregory is our communications director, and she is the artistic visionary that is responsible for our outstanding newsletter content, and many of the things that all of our members and those who sign up for our emails interact with regularly. Brittany-Rae's dedication to our team's perfection is incredibly motivational. She's consistently striving to support us and to make all of our work better. And she does all of this while caring for her new family, which is monumental in and of itself. The amount of passion that she puts into everything that she does, and I think I can speak for the entire team when I say this, is nothing if not awe-inspiring. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brittany-Rae to give you an update.
Thanks so much, Ryan. As Ryan said, I'm Brittany-Rae Gregory, and I'm NCC's Communications Director. In our increasingly digital world, especially over the course of the past 20 months, we know that communication is critical to fostering relationships with members and our stakeholders. I encourage you to keep up with what NCC and our members are doing through our publications. Like Ryan mentioned, we have our monthly newsletter that features the voices of on-the-ground leaders and discusses current issues in broadband. We also have our blog and of course our social media channels where we keep up with the broadband conversation in real time. We do know that communication is dynamic, so we're always looking to improve. If you have suggestions for how you would like to receive the information that we share, or if you have information that you would like for us to share about your community, please do feel free to reach out to us via the email address provided on the last page of the program booklet. And I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Lukas Pietzrak. Lukas is truly the backbone of NCC. He's a great team player, and he's always willing to step in to assist or take the lead. A lifelong student, he's eager to learn, but I have to say that we learn the most from Lukas. He keeps us on our toes when it comes to current events in both the broadband space and outside of the broadband space. One of my favorite things that he keeps us abreast of are workplace TikTok trends. But in all seriousness, I've learned so much from Lukas about digital redlining and the significance of broadband access in the LGBT community, especially among youth. Though he's pretty accomplished in his own right, he's definitely just getting started. I look forward to seeing what positive impact Lukas has on equity and digital inclusion in the broadband space. Lukas Pietzrak.
Thanks so much, Brittany-Rae. As Brittany-Rae said, my name is Lukas Pietzrak, and I have the honor of serving as the program director for partnerships and campaigns for Next Century Cities. As some of you know, I've been with NCC for about 2 years, and over the course of that tenure, I've held a number of positions, but all of them have given me the pleasure of interacting with the local officials that you're going to get to meet today. With over 220 members, our network is full of active, dedicated, and passionate elected and career officials who are working day and night to close the digital divide in their communities. It is our honor and our privilege to listen to them every day. Whenever I sit down in a meeting, I always think about what NCC uniquely brings to the table, and it's truly these stories. As someone who has a background in academia and in Washington, I think a lot about how quickly we can lose sight of what is happening on the ground and outside of the Beltway. This conference allows us to step back and listen, something that people in DC can often forget to do. Our communities range from small villages to large metropolises, and the governments that support them vary widely. While we have many part-time mayors, all of our officials are full-time neighbors. They see their constituents in the grocery store, at the soccer field, and walking down the street. We must continue to rely on them for more than ceremonial insight, but instead root our arguments and policy proposals in what they bring to the table. We're also extremely thankful for the generous support of our sponsors who have made today's conference and the fantastic platform possible. Our platinum sponsor, Google Fiber, our bronze sponsor, the Siegel Family Endowment, and our official streaming partner, the Greater Washington, D.C. chapter of the Internet Society. We're also always grateful for the ongoing organizational support of the Ford Foundation, the Open Society Foundations, the Media Democracy Fund, the Robert Deutsch Foundation, and Google. They ensure that Next Century Cities can continue to make an impact all year long. And I would be remiss not to mention the thanks we have for our organizational allies, both in Washington and across the country. They collaborate with us regularly, and they contribute to this amazing policy ecosystem. Since 2014, our allies have ensured that we can create strong coalitions and partnerships that help us center two of our foundational goals: elevating local voices, and closing the digital divide. I now have the honor and pleasure of introducing one of my favorite humans on planet Earth and my partner in this mission, Corian Zacker. Before coming to Next Century Cities, Corian researched and worked on telecom policy issues at the University of Colorado Law School, where they earned their JD. While at Colorado Law, Corian studied telecommunications law and policy and served as the editor-in-chief of the Colorado Technology Law Journal. In their student note, Paving the Road to Fiber, readers learn about federal technology policy's impact on local broadband deployment. I always joke that somehow Corian, as our policy council for state and local initiatives, can somehow keep up with 50 state capitals, the territories, and what's happening locally in almost every municipality across the country. I would now like to introduce someone who I consider a superhero and a whiz when it comes to broadband, our Policy Council for State and Local Initiatives, Corian Zacker.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Lucas. I'm Corian Zacker, NCC's Policy Council for State and Local Initiatives. In the last year, states and communities across the country have joined the local leaders in NCC's membership by making broadband access and adoption priorities. At the same time, those communities face numerous challenges to ensuring that every person in their community has the broadband access they need. In a little over a year, NCC has uplifted local voices in numerous states, supporting communities nationwide. California is an excellent example of NCC's increase in sharing community perspectives at the state level. Since last fall, when Governor Newsom signed the state's broadband executive order, NCC has filed letters to the governor's office and legislature and shared policy recommendations with the California Public Utilities Commission. Each of those filings discusses the importance of centering community needs in the state's broadband policy and inviting local leaders to be a part of statewide strategies to address the digital divide. In May, NCC's Executive Director, Francella Ochillo, took that perspective a step further in her congressional testimony, lifting up community voices to the U.S. House Energy and Commerce Committee Subcommittee on Communications and Technology. Raising attention to the vital importance of developing collaborative, innovative, and inclusive solutions to reach those who remain disconnected is Francella's signature move. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce NCC's fearless leader and tireless digital equity advocate, Francella Ochillo.
Thank you so much, Corian. You are my ambassador of Quan. I want to start by just, number one, pointing out, Corian, your outstanding, uncompromising work ethic and compassionate leadership that charges our team. Lukas, Brittany-Rae, and Ryan, the overwhelming success of this conference is in particular because of you. And I also want to mention that Aldona, Rondella, and Josh, your voices in elevating local leaders helps shape how we do what we do. Clearly, we are a small organization with big ambitions that really dwarf our size. We believe in each other's work. We value good ideas over tenure. We treat requests from local leaders like calls for help from neighbors in our own hometown. For years, local leaders have faced obstacles in participating in federal and state policymaking forums and don't always have adequate resources to be able to support broadband programs. So that's part of what makes Next Century Cities work so critical. We stand in the gap as a partner. We center community perspectives into broadband policymaking at every level of government, making it better. We lift up the voices of local leaders in rooms where they are rarely invited. At Next Century Cities, we not only work to close the digital divide that's in front of us today, but we're also working to avoid the digital divide that's around the corner in the future. We want to make sure that Petaluma, California is able to discover East Liverpool, Ohio as a tourist destination. We want sixth graders in Sumter, South Carolina to be able to have the same ability to study robotics as those in West Des Moines, Iowa. We want the people in Greenville, Illinois to be able to age in place, while the graduates in Gainesville, Florida and Rochester, New York see possibilities to stay and give back to their communities instead of finding ways to search for ways out. Whether you're a local leader starting to improve your broadband strategies or a community advocate that is just looking for a place to start, there is room for you in our village. We are constantly looking for ways to incorporate research into policy discussions, lift up organizations who are working on the digital divide, and to find new partners on cross-sectional issues that relate to climate change, food insecurity, housing insecurity, and other issues that are all tied to broadband access. We believe that the most revolutionary ideas are in places that are far away from the capital. That's why last year we set out to unearth the stories in places like Albuquerque, Detroit, Long Beach, Huntsville, Mesa, and Memphis. And we were lucky to tap into Medvis Jackson's talents. He is a writer, a community activist, and a public servant. And we're lucky to be able to have him here with us today to introduce our keynote speaker.